June 25, 1950. The invasion of South Korea by North Korea ignited the war. Korea was once a nation where people believed in God and respected their ancestors. But the war unleashed an inferno upon this nation. 60 years later, however, Korea has grown into one of the world's top 10 economic powerhouses. Without the help of the 16 UN member nations that sent fighting troops and the 6 nations that sent medical units during or in the immediate aftermath of the Korean War, Korea would not exist today. We cannot forget the sacrifices of those who fought to protect Korea's peace and freedom from communism. The founders of the Little Angels, Reverend and Mrs. Sun Myung-moon, are peacemakers. They met former President Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union and urged them to bring about an end of communism, and they embraced Kim Il-sung as they continued their lifelong work for peace and the reunification of Korea. That is why Reverend and Mrs. Moon supported the Little Angels to visit the nations that participated in the Korean War by holding performances to express Korea's gratitude. That is how the global tour began. On Korean Memorial Day, June 6, 2010, the long 194-day journey of touring 16 nations began, starting in the United States. It was completed in 3 stages, with the Philippines being the last destination. The Little Angels poured all their energy into every performance, and the Korean War veterans felt proud and dignified to have stood up for Korea's freedom and peace decades ago. The veterans, who remember the screams of orphans crying for their parents throughout the war, were moved by the magnificent performance of the young, adorable Little Angels. After successfully completing the tour of 16 nations, the Little Angels then began the 4th part of their tour, visiting the nations that provided medical aid during the Korean War. On May 14, 2011, the Little Angels departed for their first destination, Berlin, Germany. Ranging in age from 9 to 15, the Little Angels began this meaningful journey with strong dedication and determination. Despite the difficult situation Germany was in after World War II, it contributed much-needed humanitarian assistance to Korea. On May 17, 1954, the German Red Cross opened a hospital on the old site of Busan Girls Hospital and provided free medical services to patients suffering from poverty and injuries. Germany helped us during the Korean War and helped the Korean economy after the Korean War. Berlin was conquered by the Soviet Union at the end of World War II. After the war, it was separated and governed by the United States, England, France, and the Soviet Union. The 160-kilometer-long Berlin Wall was built to separate East and West Berlin. Until the Berlin Wall was torn down in 1989, Germany suffered the same pain of being a divided nation. At the Brandenburg Gate, the Little Angels had a very meaningful experience. They met with the founders of the Little Angels, Reverend and Mrs. Sun Myung-moon. Waving their hands to their founders, the Little Angels received much motivation from this meaningful reunion. The Tempodrome Hall, which has a seating capacity of 2,500, hosted performances by world-famous entertainers in the past. The doors had to be opened 2 hours early due to the large crowd waiting outside the hall. Some of the audience even made a long trip from neighboring nations such as Austria and Croatia. The performance in Germany was very meaningful because it was held on the same day that Germany established the Sodok Hospital in Busan in 1957. Reverend and Mrs. Moon, who had come to Germany the day before, came to the performance unannounced. The adorable little angels handed them flowers as a sign of gratitude, and the audience warmly welcomed them. Reverend and Mrs. Moon sat in the general seating area throughout the 2-hour performance. In the 50-year history of the Little Angels, their presence was an unprecedented honor. The Little Angels put on a performance with endless passion and demonstrated Korea's outstanding traditional culture to the 2,500 audience members. Although the Little Angels were fatigued because of jet lag, they spread their wings to give happy smiles to those who came to the performance. The audience applauded the beautiful culture of the East, which many of them had never seen before. After the performance, Reverend and Mrs. Moon came onto the stage to encourage the Korean War veterans who wore medals of honor around their necks. On the next day, the Little Angels were invited to the Berlin Cathedral. This historic cathedral, built in 1747, is a landmark building of Berlin. Dressed in beautiful colored traditional Korean clothing called hanbok, the Little Angels sang beautiful songs with a collective voice clearer than the blue sky. The singing that filled the cathedral was truly a harmony that came from heaven. In the afternoon, Reverend Moon gave a speech at the Tempodrome Hall. After listening to the words of Reverend Moon in the capacity-filled hall, the Little Angels prayed to God as they prepared for the upcoming performance.
오늘 독일에서 이틀 감사를 드립니다.
They were grateful and honored to be able to perform at an event that was organized by their founders. For Reverend and Mrs. Moon, Berlin was the last destination of their European tour. For the Little Angels, however, Berlin was the first destination in a long journey. The journey was more meaningful because it was a journey for expressing the gratitude of the Korean people, not showing off their talent in front of an audience. We hope that the Little Angels will flutter their wings throughout the world and create a loving environment reflecting the Little Angels' founding spirit of loving God, people, and our country. Sweden is a country located on the Scandinavian peninsula in Northern Europe. Thanks to its constitutional monarchy and international neutrality, this peaceful nation never experienced a single war in over 150 years. In September of 1950, this neutral nation was the first country to gather volunteers and send a medical team to Korea. The medical team, consisting of 1,125 volunteers, stayed in Korea for 3 years as they treated over 200,000 wounded. It is a country that Korea is indebted to. Before leaving for Sweden, the Little Angels pinned the Swedish flag on their uniforms. As they arrived at Stockholm Airport, they received a warm welcome from the local people. Although these young girls had been away from home for over a week, this kind of warm welcome kept them from being homesick. just like the bright sky, their footsteps are lighter than ever. Rehearsal is the only way to get used to a new stage. The little angels understand that rehearsal and thorough preparation are the keys to a successful performance. Because the little angels began this journey with a Korean flag on their uniform, they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. After the rehearsal, the little angels enjoyed a healthy meal. Thanks to the healthy meal provided by the staff, the little angels recovered their energy after the rehearsal. The performance hours are nearing, and the teachers are busy looking after the hair and makeup of all the little angels. The Berwaldhallen, located near Stockholm Port, where official residences of foreign diplomats are located, is an exclusive hall for the Sweden Radio Philharmonic Orchestra. Although it's 7 p.m., it is still bright outside because it's White Night in Europe. The curtains opened in front of the 1,000 audience members, and the little angels began singing the national anthems of the two countries.
Excellencies, distinguished
After a
guests,
congratulatory address by Ambassador Seok-jung, a welcoming address by Chairman Ek Jae-oke of the Veterans Association, and remarks made by Dr. Po Hee-pak, co-chairman of the Memorial Committee, the little angels came onto the stage and put on an energetic performance. From the endless series of new costumes, music, programs, with just the right balance of fast and slow tempos, and a video background that resembled Korea during the war, every part of the performance was an amazing attraction. When the little angels changed into their soldier costumes and began to sing in unison, the audience was mesmerized by their performance. One by one, they stood up from their seats and applauded the little angels. The next day, the little angels visited Stockholm City Hall, which is where the Nobel Prize winners gather for a banquet on December 10th of every year. Mayor Margareta York, who attended the previous night's performance, welcomed the little angels as she asked the names of each one of them. The mayor then gave a detailed introduction of the City Hall building and its historic value.
So once again, 1, 2, 3.
After visiting City Hall, the little angels visited a nearby museum and received a brief introduction to the history and the life of the Swedish people. They also visited the folk village. In a park filled with dandelions, they became young girls again, playing like any other girls at their age. At the young age of 28, Mrs. Catherine Jonassen came to Korea as a nursing officer. 6 of the little angels visited Mrs. Jonassen at her home. 61 years ago, Mrs. Jonassen treated the wounded who were on the line of life and death. And even after all this time, she told the story to the little angels as if it had occurred yesterday. Mr. Kim, whose first name she doesn't remember, gave her a drawing which is now her family's heirloom, and she donated all her records regarding the Korean War to the local museum. Showing an article that was printed in the local newspaper, Mrs. Jonassen believes that her volunteer work in Korea was the most valuable investment she made in her life.
Men varför just i Halland?
The little angels sang for Mr. and Mrs. Jonassen and put a Korean flag pin on their shirts. And they prayed for their everlasting health and well-being. On the next day, the little angels participated in a banquet hosted by the Korean embassy in Sweden. It was a meaningful occasion because Korean War veterans were invited as well.
오늘 주 스웨덴 인도 대사분이 편지를 보내셨는데 아주 수준급이라고 잘했다고 그렇게 얘기를 하고 여기 교민들도 이 리틀 엔젤스 공연이 스웨덴에서 지금 처음 했었답니다. 네. 그래서 그분들 하시는 말씀이 그 본인들의 2세들이 한번 봤으면 좋겠다 그런 얘기를 하시더라고요.
Sympathizing with those who fought for Korea beyond generations. This is true love. Spending 5 days in Sweden, the little angels saw how modest the Swedish people are. And in a way, they were very similar to Koreans. Loving freedom and peace. After 60 years, the little angels, as tiny ambassadors of peace and goodwill, came to express our gratitude. These 5 days were moments when a beautiful history of mankind was being written. Located in the western part of the Scandinavian peninsula, Norway is a nation with a constitutional monarchy, and it is a peaceful nation that hosts the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony every year. During the Korean War, Norway dispatched a mobile surgical team and treated over 90,000 wounded for over 5 years. First, the little angels visited the UN Memorial Park, where the UN soldiers who sacrificed their lives in the Korean War rest. They were welcomed by a small memorial. The Vice Minister of National Defense, the Captain of the Honor Guard, the Mayor of Oslo, and Korean War veterans and retired UN soldiers.
What can we do to be sure?
Mayor Fabian Stang of Oslo thanked the little angels for their visit and reminded them that they are a symbol of peace in today's world where wars are continuously taking place.
And then I am
Co-chairman Bo Hee-pak responded by saying that he hopes that the visit of the little angels will be a reflection of Korea's gratitude to the Korean War veterans.
And the sacrifices that were made during the Korean War.
The national anthems of the two countries filled the air in the Memorial Park. To those who sacrificed their lives to protect Korea 60 years ago, we hope that these flowers and the visit of the little angels can be a small consolation for all the great help they had given to Korea. The National Assembly of Norway is called Storting, which means a great gathering of the people, and it is where a committee of 5 members selects the winners of the Nobel Peace Prize every year.
Assistance to Korea during
Vice Chairman Per Christian Foss greeted the little angels at the very building where Norway decided to dispatch aid to the Korean War 60 years ago. After visiting the National Assembly, the little angels visited Oslo City Hall, which was completed in 1950 after 19 years of construction. The building is a famous place around the world. Every year, the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony is held on the first floor of the City Hall. One day, we hope that the little angels, the angels of hope, are called to receive the Nobel Peace Prize by the decision of the 5 committee members of the Storting. Then, the little angels were invited to a banquet at the Korean embassy in Norway. The little angels also had the opportunity to meet King Harold V of Norway and put a medal of peace around his neck.
한 것을 말씀드리고 싶어요. 우리 어린 천사들이 이렇게 와주신 것은 앞으로 양국관계 발전에 굉장히 도움이 될 것 같아요. 오늘 어린 천사 여러분들은 정말 가장 소중한 우리 민간 애교 사절이다 하고 여러분께 고마움을 표시하고요. 다시 한번 환영을 합니다.
Mr. Ege Lien prepared a souvenir for the little angels, and they sang Arirang together. Spending this precious moment together with the post-war generation of children in Norway 60 years after the war will be a valuable memory to Mr. Lien. Then, the little angels visited the memorial of Trygve Halvdan Lie, who served as the first Secretary General to the UN. Trygve Halvdan Lie. What would have happened to our country if it wasn't for him? He's the very person who asked the world to help Korea when the Korean War broke out. We expressed our gratitude with flowers.
My grandfather was probably...
His grandson also participated in the event and shared his memory of his grandfather, how getting the UN to help Korea during the Korean War, despite the opposition, was the single greatest achievement he was most proud of. He thanked the little angels for being living proof that his grandfather was right. People are the ones who can save or destroy our world. However, gatherings like this are always beautiful. At an empty auditorium, the local staff and technical crew prepared the stage where the little angels will perform. The crew, consisting of some of the finest in Korea, create the best stage settings despite the challenging environment. Thorough preparations are made so that every voice of the little angels is heard throughout the performance hall. This preparation work is what allows the little angels to spread their wings and fly. Of course, for every good disciple, there's always a good teacher. The managing director and 4 teachers look after every aspect of the little angels' performance and well-being. And that's not all. Behind the stage, there are people who prepare the meals and costumes so that the little angels can put on a good performance. When everyone works together in harmony, a great performance is created. We are at the Oslo Concert House, which is the exclusive performance hall of the Oslo Philharmonic Orchestra.
623, as Mr. Ambassador said, Norwegian men and women served at the Nomad, and also 400 Norwegian sailors contributed with logistical support during the Korean War. 3 Norwegian medical personnel died in our country.
After understanding the significance of the performance, the audience applauded the little angels as soon as the performance began. These little girls came all the way from Korea to put on a performance that is adorable, peaceful, humorous, and even dynamic at times. And the audience applauded their hard work. However, there was more than singing and dancing to the performance. The Korean War veterans were invited onto the stage, where the little angels gave each of them a hero's medal and honored what they had done for Korea. They are the heroes that protected Korea. And history records the solemn sacrifices they made. Rome is a city that has a giant cultural heritage site of its own. Everywhere you go, everything you set your eyes on in the city tells you about its history. The heritage from centuries ago is what makes Rome shine brighter. Back in 1950, Italy was not a member of the UN due to the fact that it was a defeated nation in World War II. However, when the Korean War broke out, it dispatched the 68th Red Cross Field Hospital, consisting of 128 doctors and nurses, in November of 1950. Today, the little angels visited them to pay our gratitude to the Red Cross. The little angels offered flowers to the memorial plaque on the wall of the Red Cross Auditorium. Your solemn sacrifices and philanthropy have healed our wounds.
Speaks the perfect Italian.
Then, the little angels were invited to a reception at the Korean embassy held to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the dispatch. The Korean War veterans and Koreans from throughout Italy came to commemorate this meaningful day. The scars of the war that once felt endless were healed. And today, the little angels who were born in the country they protected are here to sing about love as symbols of peace. Since its opening in 1732, the Argentina Theater has held numerous performances of masterpieces, and it earned its fame by hosting the premiere of Rossini's The Barber of Seville in 1816. The six-story semicircular auditorium consists of 186 balcony rooms, and it is a beautiful theater that recalls the banquets of medieval nobles. While the preparations were underway, a large crowd gathered outside. Despite the busy preparations, co-chairman Bo Hee-bak agreed to an interview with a TV station that was producing a documentary about the 60th anniversary of the Korean War.
전쟁 61주년 기념이 되는 달입니다. 여러분들 다 잘 보셔서 아시는 대로 그 리틀 엔젤스가 유럽 여러 나라 참전 16개국 또 의료단 파견팀 5개국 해가지고 매년 거의 매년 그 순회 공연을 다니고 있습니다. 그야말로 평화의 사절이고 정말 그 어여쁜 어린이 한 명 한 명이 정말 대사로서 저 못지않은 대사로서 상당한 활약을 하고 있는 것을 제가 너무 뿌듯하고 고맙게 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Although Italy is a country with some of the best performances in the world, the Little Angels put on a performance with perfection. Turning, stopping, and turning again. Crouching down and jumping up to the sky. From perfect balance of powerful and slow movements, from Jinyangjo to Chajinmori, the Little Angels moved the hearts of the audience with their performance. After completing a 2-hour performance in front of one of the most challenging audiences in the world, the Little Angels were out of breath, but also filled with confidence. After the performance, they put a hero's medal on Mrs. Pascuto, who is now 102 years old, and wished for her a long, healthy life. After completing the performance in Rome, the Little Angels went on a tour of the city. Looking at the historic sites that they had seen only in textbooks, such as the Colosseum and the Vatican, the Little Angels created valuable memories to take home with them. After a special performance in Cameroon, Africa, for the 50-year celebration of diplomatic relations with Korea, the Little Angels arrived at Denmark after a 12-hour flight. Soon after unpacking, the Little Angels had a wreath-laying ceremony at the Korean War Memorial at Langani Port. Klaus Jensen, who was a doctor and is now the chairman of the Korean War Veterans Association, came to greet the Little Angels with 6 fellow veterans. The Jutlandia. The Jutlandia is a legend. When the UN decided to provide aid to Korea, Denmark was the first country to decide to provide medical assistance. After hearing this news, the East Asia Company donated its 8,500-ton passenger ship, Jutlandia. It was renovated into a hospital ship with a helicopter pad first, then it departed for Korea from this very port. After a 45-day journey, the Jutlandia arrived in Korea in January of 1951. Until it returned home on October 1, 1953, the 187 medical relief workers saved the lives of 10,981 people in Busan and Incheon. The Little Angels placed a wreath at the memorial and then attended a reception that was organized by the Korean Embassy. The reception was held at Asia House, which is located near the memorial. Asia House is a foundation that was established by the East Asia Company, and it exhibits pictures of the Jutlandia and its role in the Korean War. Looking at these pictures with the veterans, the Little Angels were grateful for their courage and sacrifices. 4,000 nurses volunteered when there was only room for 42, and the crew were picked up from different blood types so that they could give their own blood in cases of emergency. The Little Angels were grateful for this legendary tale of helping Korea. On the 9th, which was the second day of the visit to Denmark, the Little Angels visited Copenhagen's City Hall. Copenhagen is a city with 7 mayors. The 7 mayors each fulfill their duties to administrate the city in their own areas, and the Little Angels were greeted by Pia Allerslev, Copenhagen's mayor of culture. The mayor was already well aware of the Little Angels from their reputation, and she prepared Danish pancakes for them that were made using the unique recipe of Copenhagen City Hall from 100 years ago. And it was more than enough to make the angels curious. After visiting City Hall, the Little Angels went to the statue of Hans Christian Andersen, who is the author of world-famous tales such as The Little Mermaid, The Emperor's New Clothes, and The Ugly Duckling. The last performance of the European tour was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Marriott Hotel in the form of a gala. The Little Angels tried their best to put on an outstanding performance, even though the stage was smaller. Over the years, the Little Angels have nurtured a spirit of doing their best, regardless of the situation they are in. The performance was attended by Princess Elizabeth, Eva Kazar, the Danish Commissioner of Diplomatic Affairs, and Mayor Pia Allerslev.
They never have forgotten those who helped them. I don't believe we can find such gratitude in any other country. Thank you so much, Korea, for the very, very fine quality and character.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Co-chairman Bowie Bach couldn't help himself from crying during his address as he expressed gratitude for the sacrifice of the veterans. He expressed deep gratitude to the medical staff who helped the Korean people with such warm hearts that they even looked after the war orphans.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Little Angels are children. Why have we brought the children? Why? Because during the Korean War, children were the helpless victims who suffered the most. Even in the midst of combat, it was you, Danish medical doctors and nurses, who served, saved many children, and helped them to have a new life.
Although there were limitations in terms of performance space and the video background couldn't be used on the stage, the Little Angels focused all their energy on dancing and singing. The audience enjoyed the performance that took place so close in front of them, and they were very happy with the quality of the performance. After the performance, the Little Angels gave a hero's medal to each of the 17 veterans who represented over 100 fellow soldiers, and the tour of the 5 European countries was over.
여러분들이 그 아리랑 아리랑 노래 불렀잖아. 그때 내 옆에 있던 그 회장이 그 내년이 되면 90세 되면 할아버지인데 속으로 울더라고. 그러니까 자기가 아는 거야. 아리랑이라는 게 얼마나 슬프면서도 우리 국민들의 마음을 읽어주는지를 울더라고 같이. 그래서 손 꽉 잡아줬어요. 여러분들이 고마워.
Reverend and Mrs. Moon made this performance possible. When we travel to another nation and put on a good performance, we miss you even more. We would like to come see you as soon as we can. However, we remind ourselves of the time we spent to complete the goal you have set before us. We are hereby reporting to you the successful performances we've had for repaying our debt. Taking a tour of the city after the performance was over, the Little Angels felt just as bright as the clear sky. Copenhagen is a city with a well-developed system of canals, and the view of the city from a canal boat is truly magnificent. The children even spent a joyful time at the statue of the Little Mermaid. After the 30-day European tour, the Little Angels were invited to a feast at the Danish church. Chairman Song Young-chul, who provided unsparing support for the performances in Europe, said farewell to the Angels.
다른 나라에서, 그러니까 유럽 전체 36개국에서도 여러분들 리틀 엔젤스가 와서 공연을 해야 되지 않느냐라고 하는 그런 전화 그리고 이메일 그런 소식들을 지금 계속 받고 있습니다. 그만큼 그 참석한 모든 그 지도자들, 외교관들, 국회의원들 그리고 일반 시민들의 반응이 너무나도 좋습니다.
Co-chairman Bo Hee-bak also thanked our family members in Europe for all their hard work and congratulated the Little Angels on a job well done.
세계를 다녔다 해도 여러분들처럼 그 많은 사람들에게 감동을 준 올림픽 선수는 없습니다. 여러분은 이 나라의 사람들의 그 마음을 휘어잡았어요. 마음을 꺼냈어. 가슴에서 마음을 꺼내가지고 여러분 보따리에다 싸가지고 가져가는 거야. 그리고 그 사람들이 한국을 잊지 못하는 거야. 리틀 엔젤을 통해서. 이게 여러분들의 힘이야.
On November 19, 2011, the Little Angels began the last part of their journey for repaying our debt to 16 UN nations and 6 other nations that provided medical aid. Arriving at the airport, the Little Angels were greeted by the local staff, and they began their schedule in India with bright smiles on their faces. India, which was a neutral nation, agreed with the UN resolution to provide civilian aid and dispatched medical support teams to Korea. Under the command of Lieutenant Major Rangaraj, the 60th Field Hospital arrived in Busan on November 20th, 1950, and provided high-quality medical aid as they supported the 27th Brigade of the British Army for over 4 years. A country that has the second greatest population in the world. A country with infinite growth potential. A country that won the highest number of Nobel Prizes in Asia. a country that is well known for the great poet Rabindranath Tagore, India. After arriving in India, the little angels first visited India's world-famous cultural heritage site, the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is a place that embraces a beautiful love story. The little angels are here to deliver a message of love and peace, and there's no better place for the angels to learn about love. When the little angels arrived at India's capital, New Delhi, they were invited to the home of New Delhi's governor, Sheila Dikshit, for a special banquet on behalf of the Indian people.
Very honored and warmly welcome you. I do hope it's going to be an evening which you would remember, because I know I'm going to remember it.
There were occasions when the little angels were invited to an embassy or a city hall. However, being invited to the governor's home was an unprecedented event. This invitation was a sign of how the Indian government welcomed the visit of the little angels. The following morning, the little angels visited the India Gate, which is the symbol of India. The India Gate was built to commemorate the 70,000 soldiers who lost their lives in World War I and the Afghan War. Measuring 42 meters in height, the name plaques of 13,516 soldiers are honored on the gate. Although these soldiers didn't lose their lives in the Korean War, the envoy of peace placed flowers to honor the sacrifices of those who lost their lives in the war. Next, the little angels visited the memorial park of Mahatma Gandhi, who is a hero of the Indian people. Gandhi dedicated his entire life to peace and equal rights in India. That's why he is respected and loved in India and around the world, even 60 years after his death. By carrying out his non-violent campaign of resistance, he taught the world about the meaning of peace, and the little angels were reminded of his great teachings. Today, Sonia Gandhi is the most influential individual in India. As the leader of the Congress Party, which is the most powerful party in India, she was ranked as the world's 9th most influential leader. She is so busy that even local politicians and the Korean ambassador to India couldn't arrange a meeting with her. But she welcomed the little angels with the warm smile of a mother. She remembered the first visit of the little angels back in 1974. And 40 years later, she gave a warm welcome to the little angels as they returned to India. The little angels gave her a Hero's Medal of Peace and a lacquer bowl with Rose of Sharon decorations. It was an unforgettable experience to meet Sonia Gandhi.
1, 2, 3.
Wherever we went, the Korean ambassadors always welcomed the little angels with warm, fatherly smiles. The Korean ambassador to India was no exception. The Korean embassy had the most beautiful garden we had ever visited on the tour. That's where we took pictures with the ambassador.
못 먹었죠? 여기가 인도 델리에서 제일 좋은 한국 식당이에요. 그러니까 맛있게 들고 내일 모레 공연 열심히 잘하세요. 네. 반갑습니다. 예, 박수.
제가 이렇게 아직 식구도 안
After enjoying a carefully prepared meal, the little angels spent a wonderful time with the ambassador. Before leaving the embassy, the little angels didn't forget to put on a small performance for the ambassador and embassy employees, who were working hard for Korea in a distant land. The performances of the little angels provided laughter and inspiration to numerous people around the world. They are about to have the finale of this journey in New Delhi, India. The little angels practiced as hard as they could and made thorough preparations to put on a performance for repaying our debt to those who made great sacrifices for our nation. As the curtains opened, the little angels first sang the national anthems of both countries.
In 1913, the great Nobel laureate from India, Rabindranath Tagore, composed the line of the following poem. In the golden age of Asia, Korea was one of its lamp bearers, and that lamp is waiting to be lighted once again for the illumination in the East. I believe that Tagore received the content of his poem as a prophetic revelation. We Korean people have always considered this poem to be a prophecy for Korea's future. Now, almost 100 years later, that prophecy is now being fulfilled. 60 years after the Korean War, Korea has indeed become a luminous country in the world.
Preceding greetings by co-chairman Bo Hee-bak, other high-ranking officials came up to the stage to give congratulatory addresses, remind the audience about the significance of the performance, and to welcome the angels to India.
Because today's show is going down in the annals as a breathtaking program. You wouldn't have seen anything like this. When we met Mrs. Gandhi this morning, she said that it was breathtaking, their music. It was something very, very extraordinary. We are celebrating the centenary year of this lovely city, which Sheila Dikshit, with great effort, has made it into a beautiful city, and this celebration is also commemorating with this occasion today.
The carefully prepared pieces were shown one by one. As the performance continued, the audience applauded the little angels and the beautiful performance they presented on the stage. After the performance, the ambassador was very proud of the little angels.
금년이 2011년이 인도에서의 한국의 해, 한국에서의 그 인도의 해인데, 그래서 지난 1년 동안에 뉴델리에서 많은 문화 공연이 열렸거든요. 그런데 대사님 보기에 오늘 리틀 에인젤스 공연이 제일 잘 됐어요. 고맙습니다.
In India, the little angels performed for 2 nights in a row. After the first day, 16 media outlets across the country covered the success of the performance by the little angels. On the second day, The Indian government chose young students who will lead the future of India and gave them the opportunity to enjoy the outstanding performance of the Little Angels. Although some had to sit in the aisles due to the shortage of seats, they cheered for the fantastic performance of the Little Angels, who were applauded more than in any other country. It was a meaningful moment when the proud Korean culture inspired the hearts of youths in India. After the performance, the Little Angels gave heroes' medals to those who participated in the Korean War. That's how we delivered gifts of hope and love from our hearts to the hearts of the Indian youth.
한국 전쟁을 도와준 22개 나라의 마지막 나라인 인도의 공연을 2번에 걸쳐서 성황리에 마치었습니다. 이제부터 우리 리틀 엔젤스 세계를 무대로 더욱더 참 부모님의 영광과 하나님의 영광을 위해서 노래하고 춤추고 뛸 것입니다.
After a 2-year tour of 22 nations, the Little Angels are finally coming home. At the airport, the parents of the Little Angels were waiting to greet their daughters with proud smiles on their faces. The Little Angels took confident steps back into the arms of their parents. And the parents were proud of the young girls who returned home after a meaningful trip to repay our debt to those who had helped us. The Korean War was the first war in the history of the world in which the UN headquarters was organized and UN forces were deployed to fight the invaders that were threatening world peace. Each of the nations we visited had an important historical significance. The German Medical Support Group established the first Red Cross hospital in Korea. On May 17th, 57 years later, the Little Angels visited the German Red Cross with their founders, Reverend and Mrs. Sun Myung-moon, and created an unforgettable memory. The 3 nations of the Scandinavian Peninsula, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, donated medical equipment after their humanitarian mission, and this became the foundation of the National Medical Center of Korea. Italy, which had been a war criminal from World War I and II, was allowed to join the UN after getting recognition for dispatching the Red Cross to Korea. 60 years later, most Korean War veterans have become seniors, and many of them have passed away. However, their love for peace and mankind is a precious heritage left for all people. They were proud to watch the Little Angels put on beautiful performances after overcoming the ruins of the Korean War, and to see how a nation they fought to protect is now becoming one of the world's leading nations. The ambassadors complimented the work of the Little Angels and how they have served as great civilian ambassadors, and the locals were mesmerized by the outstanding quality of Korean arts and culture. But above all, what we appreciated most were the compliments on our spirit of coming to distant countries to console the war veterans. We have done so because it was the wish of the founders, Reverend and Mrs. Moon. Reverend and Mrs. Moon have carried out a peace campaign for Korea's reunification, and we nodded in gratitude for the thoughtfulness of supporting the Little Angels to put on performances in countries we were indebted to. As honorary ambassadors of Korea, the Little Angels consoled them and thanked them. If we have repaid our debt to them just a little before they pass away, we are satisfied. The Little Angels have now completed the month-long journey of touring the 6 nations that provided medical aid to Korea. The 231-day journey is now over. All 65 of the Little Angels and the staff made passionate efforts for the success of the performances wherever they went. Korea is a nation that doesn't forget. The Little Angels proved just that.